Cool. Welcome to Hotep-ish. Thank y'all for joining us. We're a little bit late, but hey, technical stuff happens. You know what I mean? I don't want y'all getting mad. I know the people are mad. They understand because the listeners understand because when everybody get to work, y'all know good in the hell well y'all don't go right to work. Sit around drinking coffee, gossiping.
Scrolling on your phone.
Scrolling on your phone. It ain't been no work lately, but you know what I'm talking about when you go back. Live in studio, I have my man, Mr. Rubyn Warren. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, man. Blessed and highly melanated. You feel me?
Blessed and highly melanated.
Yes.
He said highly melanated. Not highly favored, highly melanated. That's right. Yeah, man. We gonna get into it, man. But thank y'all for listening to Hotep-ish, Intelligent-ish Talk, where we have intelligent shit talk. It's gonna be some intelligent stuff, but it's gonna be some shit too. Because life is profound and profane.
At the same damn time.
At the same time. People always want to act like they all one thing. No, in the hell we ain't.
It's all kinds of shades of gray.
It's all kinds of shades, man. I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. But, Ruben, I want to get right into it because you've had a very interesting journey.
Man.
Through music lately. Because I'm going to set it up for the audience, let them know. Ruben's been on a journey. He's been... He first went through Stevie Wonder's catalog. Beginning to end, you know, that's about 15 years of music. He went through Earth and the Fire's catalog. Then he went through Parliament's catalog. And throughout that time, Ruben's been seeing things that how that music correlates to today's pop, today's hip hop, and today's gospel. It's been a lot of things you discover. So talk to me first, Ruben, about your music taste. What kind of music did you grow up listening to, and what do you listen to when you in a car by yourself, generally before the journey?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, I grew up in a super strict Christian household, so for me, you know, Kirk Franklin was the closest thing I got to hip hop.
So you grew up in like the gospel household? Like, okay.
Like I listened to Clark Sisters, Donald Lawrence, Hezekiah Walker, Kirk Franklin, Ty Tribbett, all of that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, though, I am a millennial, so you know, and I went to school, so I knew what I was one of them shelter Christian kids. I was the type of kid I snuck and did whatever the hell I wanted to do. You know, I ain't let that Christian shit hold me down. If I wanted to, as a matter of fact, I got my ass whooped because I snuck in a Kanye West late registration CD in my house. My mama found that and whooped my ass for it.
You stuck in the late registration. You got an ass whooping for the late registration.
Yeah. So. But I grew up with that and stuff. But just in general, though, I've always been more on the R&B side of things. I've always had a love for R&B. I love neo soul. I love the sound that neo soul gives you, like the rolls with the jazziness and all that. Like I've always loved that sound. So I would say mainly like R&B, soul has always been like the bulk. You know, hip hop is that's foundation. You know, but that I've always listened to that as well. But yeah, for me, I've always been like an R&B soul guy, and for me, you know, I was in the choir all my life, you know, from first grade all the way to 12th grade, I was in the school choir, so I've always had a love for music, and which is why I've always liked R&B and soul, and ironically, even growing up, I've always felt like I was an old soul, because I never really got into old school music like that, like I did with this journey, but I started getting into older music in my teens, like I remember being like 13, 14 and listen to Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, just and I was listening just to the hit songs, you know, just like Shining Star, all that kind of stuff. You know,
radio play.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Then, you know, I got into Stevie when I was around like 16. I started kind of fucking around with him a little bit. And again, it was on the surface. I didn't dive deep, but I was getting into some tracks. You know, then like with Parliament Funkadelic, for me, I never really got into him, but whenever I heard them, I always knew like these niggas is serious. But I never got into them like that. But I've always had a love for old school music. I've always felt like that has all. You know, I've always been able to tell the difference. You know, and know that like our parents wasn't always just hating when they tell us our music is trash. I could always hear the difference. I wasn't in denial. Like a lot of niggas being there. No, our music's just like, nah, nigga, our shit trash. Let's just call a spade, my nigga. Like I like some of it. Don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? I like a new song here and there. You know what I'm saying? But that shit trash. I can admit that.
And a lot of that is. Do we have a caller on the line? Larry, is that you? You on the line? Yeah. Oh shit! I know he's on the line. I want y'all to on the line right now from Houston, Texas. My co-host, the sorriest cat in Texas right now, the worst beard, Larry Goodwell. What's up, man?
Hey, what up, Larry?
What's up? What's up, Rubyn? Fuck that fat dude you in the studio with.
You don't want to fight me though. Hey.
Yeah.
But like, so going in like, because right now we got Rubyn talking about music, and that's the thing between music. When I want to go into a little bit when you talk about quality, like when they talk about okay, that music was better than ours. Because I went through a similar journey around the same age period as you. You know, I grew up in the in the 80s, early 90s, and the music was still good.
Yeah,
it wasn't as bad as it is now.
It wasn't shitty.
But it still wasn't as good as it was in the 70s.
It's still
And I didn't notice until I was 14 and I started teaching myself how to play the drums. And like one of the first songs that I started playing, I was 13. One of the first songs that I picked up was "I Get Around" by Tupac. Like I like that song. Yep, Larry. I'm glad that pisses you off. Like I like the beat, but I guess I was a natural at the drums. So I literally picked that beat up the first day I picked up a pair of sticks.
But the drums is a sample on that track.
It's a sample.
Yeah.
Because I remember just being like, I want to play that song on the drums, and my brother had just moved in. And he brought his drum set over, and so I went and picked up them sticks for the first and just picked it up like easily. My first day ever picking up a pair of drumsticks. By that night, I could play "I Get Around," and I kept playing Jodeci, and I kept playing Teddy Riley, and that shit was just easy. And then my dad put in some like old Frankie Beverly and Mays. He put in Frankie Beverly and Mays, "Happy Feelings." I was like, "What's this shit here? Who's this old raspy voice sounding motherfucker right here?" And then I heard "I Want to Be Free" by the Ohio Players. Now that drum solo when it started. And that's what got me hooked. And then back then, L.A. had a radio station called KACE, 103.9. It was an old school station. And so I would just, they would have these 25-minute music blocks. And I would just record the 25-minute music blocks and then replay that stuff and play the drums to it. And that's when I got to say, like, man, it was just a different quality.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Larry, I know you a hip-hop head, but you listen to everything. I know Larry's Larry's like when it comes to music, Larry knows what the hell he's talking about. Like, I know you grew up with Ronald Goodwell. When did you get into that old school 70s music? Was it through Ronald?
Man, you know it. Ronald and Red are the same person.
For those listening, Ronald's Larry's dad and Red's my dad. But go ahead.
Yeah. I got into shit. I can't remember a time where I wasn't listening to Parliament Funkadelic and Earth, Wind and Fire and James Brown, and I mean, just my dad's got a pretty decent album collection at the house. He's got albums everywhere. So I grew up on all that shit that Rubyn and you were just talking about. And plus, I'm older than you guys, so you know.
And I grew up on all. You got to see you really got to see the evolution from being there firsthand through where it is right now.
Absolutely. Like, I would hear a song. The funny thing is, I would hear a song, like a hip-hop song, early, when they first started really sampling, and I'd be like, man, Dad used to play that shit. Like, there's a song on De La Soul's second album, De La Soul is Dead, and they sampled Peg from Steely Dan.
Yeah.
And so I kept wondering why I liked this fucking song so much. And I played it for my dad heard me play it. He was like, man, cut that bullshit off and listen to the real version. And I was like, man, what are you talking about? He put on Peg.
Okay.
Yeah, the light bulb went off in my head. So I at a young age, man, I was like maybe 5 or 6.
Okay. See, for me, I remember my dad was in the Smokey and Curtis Mayfield, like, because there's so much variety in old school music. You know what I mean? Like, nowadays, you got your radio pop, your underground, and hip hop. They don't really, have too many. Back in the 70s, you still had your doo-wop groups. You still had your solo artists, your Marvin Gaye's, your Al Greens. You had your funk groups like Parliament, and then your Earth and Fire. They played something that it ain't no definition for what Earth and Fire played. They just played Earth and Fire.
Man.
You had Confunction. You had all these different sounds. So my dad was more so into the lyric. He's Curtis Mayfield. He liked James Brown, but Curtis Mayfield, Smokey Robinson, Lionel Richie. My dad liked that. And when I got into drums, my dad played funk, but not really. That was his party music. You know what I mean? That was a Little John back in the day. You know what I mean?
They crunk music.
Yeah, that was their crunk music. And so, but then I got into it, and it was just like, man, this is a whole nother world. Man. So talk to me about more, Rubyn, about, okay, you started with that sound, and then, okay, a couple weeks ago you pick up Stevie Wonder.
Okay, yeah. So I remember I had posted a question on Facebook. I said, because we was quarantine, everybody asking stupid shit. So I just asked the greatest catalog, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind & Fire. And everybody was just like, oh, Stevie Wonder. People would say Earth, Wind & Fire. But for me, I've always liked Earth. Like, I've always been an Earth, Wind & Fire fan. And I was like, y'all saying Stevie too quick. I'm like, because Earth, Wind & Fire, if they were to do an IG battle live, it would be nonstop. Like, it
would be nonstop.
You can't. Yes, Stevie has the bigger catalog, obviously, because he's been in the game, and he wrote, produced, all that kind of stuff.
He came in the game 1962.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He been in the game he was 12. So, of course, the catalog is going to be bigger, and so he's going to have more experience. I was like, but you just can't write off Earth, Wind & Fire. So that's what actually sparked it for me.
Okay.
Because I had realized, I'm like, I can't even make an informed decision on this stuff. I was like, and then when you were breaking everything down on the post about, how Earth, Wind & Fire did this and Stevie did that, and I was like, I realized, like, I need to actually just listen to this shit and just really see. So I started with Stevie Wonder. Started from 1963, 12-year-old Stevie Wonder. I started all the way. I went from there all the way to 2005, the last album.
Yeah.
And his music, it ended up becoming a spiritual journey. Not as spiritual as the latter two artists that I listened to, but it was just more so just like, it just amazed me that, like, this dude is blind, but he got 20/20 vision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and just the way that he just oozes music.
Man, that album, Inner Visions,
bruh.
Man, you can't, that nigga don't see? Stevie, you lying.
Yeah, Higher Ground, that's all about reincarnation. You know what I mean? And also, the thing that was deep to me, the deepest thing for me with listening to Stevie was how many fucking songs I already knew. And then but then, like, as many songs I already knew just off of just growing up listening, Stevie Wonder just a part of the, he's a part of just your world, you know what I'm saying? So how many songs I already knew, but then, like, how many more songs I had never heard for the first time. It blew me away. I was like, yo, this man is a music god, because this man, how does he just live, breathe, and eat and shit this stuff? You know what I mean? Because that's all he do with music.
And he played every instrument.
Yeah, played every instrument.
And he produced his own stuff.
Yeah,
and
he produced
writes.
everybody else. Wrote for a bunch of people. I mean, his music, I was just blown away. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, yo, this man is he's a god. I was like, Stevie Wonder is a fucking god. I don't give a what nobody say. He's not a human being. Like, a lot of these cats.
Rubyn.
Yeah.
Rubyn, can I you said something that resonated with my soul just now. When my father explained to me the concept of God, I asked him what God looked like, and he said, God looks like whatever you want him to look like. And as he said this to me, he was rolling up a joint, and the weed was in the Songs in the Key of Life album cover. And so I later opened it up, and I looked, like when he finished rolling, I looked at it, and I always thought that God looked like Stevie Wonder. I've told this story several times in my life, up until I realized that God could see, and then he could Stevie Wonder. But for a long time, I always thought that God looked like Stevie Wonder was God.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, that's literally how I felt when I got done. When I got all the way to his last album, I was like, yo, this man has made music from 1963. His last album was 2005. That's 40 years of banging out music, just nonstop. And then I really broke down too with Stevie. This man had like a 15-year run just dominating charts. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what was even crazier to me. It was just like, yo, just the longevity of it all,
and
doing it yourself too. It's not like you can't even say, well, Beyonce got 20 years. But like, yeah, but she don't write, she don't produce, she don't, you know what I'm saying? She don't sit there and play a keyboard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or Chris Brown.
Matter of fact, she just steal what you think is hot and put her own voice
you
on
know
it.
what I'm saying? But like, even like today's artists, you know, there are artists today, you know, who have 20 years of hits and all that kind of stuff, 15-year runs, but they're not making it. It's just writers. It's a team doing it. Because Mary J. Blige got 25 years worth of hits.
Yeah.
But that's a team doing it for her. It's not her. Like Stevie's 15 years of hits. It's all from his brain.
And here's the thing with Stevie, his sound was innovative. Like when he had to sue Motown in order for that freedom. I read about that. Yeah, because they wanted him to do all that hunky dory stuff.
Yeah,
and he was like, nah.
And he finally had to break away, and then it was when he did
Higher Ground. It was when he did the Intervisions.
No, it was the album before the one he
Talking Book.
No, the one it was the one.
Fulfilling His Personality.
No, not first. What was the one called? The one that the album that had Something Out of the Blue on it.
Oh, you talking about
I'm your soldier.
Yeah.
Think of Me as Your Soldier.
Yeah,
that was his first album where he finally like got a little bit of control.
Yeah, he got a little bit of control, but then you know he scared Motown when he went to that Fulfilling His First, and he went to all the protest music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here's the thing, and he innovated that sound. Like he innovated, you know, when he did Village Ghetto Land. That was the first keyboard sit in recorded music history. You know, Village the keyboard as far as the strings.
Yeah.
Intentionally, you know, and then the whole digital sound got introduced through Stevie Wonder. You know what I mean? Then he innovated the sound of the '80s. You know?
Yeah.
And so he was, and then we listen to his voice. If you go back and listen to early Charlie Wilson. Like people don't know that's Charlie Wilson singing on Computer Love. With
Zapp and Rock.
Yeah. But don't he sound like who do he sound like?
Sound like
Stevie Wonder.
Of course.
What are you talking about? Stevie Wonder, R. Kelly. What you talking about? They all sound like Stevie Wonder.
Stevie is the template. Yeah.
You know tell he's a template. Played all those instruments. Man, it's just like, you know, he's a god. And he's somebody that, you know, I think in today's what happens in today's world, we get so caught up in the hip hop. We forget that hip hop is a larger piece, is a smaller piece of music, and we got to idolize. We not idolize. We have to honor, not idolize. We have to honor those who have set the pathway.
That's really what this journey did for me. It made me honor music, but it also I don't know if this makes sense, but listening to these three artists made me a fan of music. Which I realize it's like I've always liked music, and you know people, but like listen to those three, it just I don't know, like I'm now a fan of music
because the sound is so lush. Stevie Wonder have a song he'll bust out If It's Magic on You with a harp, and then turn around and do Master Blaster jamming,
man,
and then come out and do a whole, you know, it's like it's the musicians that are in on it, you know what I mean? And Stevie Wonder had the greatest background trio of all time, in my opinion. My Wonder Love. Sarita Wright, who went on to do a lot of things in Motown, Minnie Riperton, and Denise Williams. Come on, man. You ain't gonna get no better harmony than that.
Hell no.
Larry, what you got? What's your feelings on Stevie Wonder, Larry?
I just told you, for a large portion of my life, he was God. Like, he was literally God. Like I thought, whenever I thought of God, I always thought he was black and he wore sunglasses and he had bullshit ass hair.
Hey, I'm about to ask you. That's what I meant to ask you. Was it 70s Stevie Wonder with the Lachero Speedwell braids, or was it 80s Stevie Wonder with the long ass Venus Williams braids?
Well, you know I was born in '74, so it was the '70s Stevie.
Oh, with the one that had the Lachero Speedwell braids.
Yeah, you had the bullshit braids.
Yeah. Because for me, it was more. Go ahead.
I want to tell Rubyn, hey man, we ain't got shit to do, so we all on social media. And I was following your whole musical journey. I followed every post. I read every last one of them. And what your little journey has done for me is it's restored my faith in young niggas, because I hate young niggas. I hate them, and I was like, this is cool that this young man gets to enjoy all this shit and really enjoy it with no distraction. That's why I liked every post that you made about your musical journey. Because I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Look at this young nigga going back in time.
Appreciate that, man. Glad I was able to be of service, man. I'm glad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I appreciate you.
And so that pushes us into Earth and Fire, man. Like Earth and Fire, that's...
Man. Dog. Remember, I called you about Earth, Wind &
called
Fire.
me Earth, Wind &
I had
Fire.
to call you about that chick.
I'm blessed because when I was young, when I was coming up in music, I was able to play under one of Earth, Wind & Fire's original trumpet players, Romney Davis.
Wow.
Not original. He's around for the All in All album, the late '70s, which is still the hottest shit.
I Am.
Yeah, he played on that. And so I got to, when I was a teenager, I used to hear his stories. And at the same time, and this is all through my church, I used to play it. The guy that used to be our music director at church, his dad was Skip Scarborough. And Skip Scarborough is a person that wrote, Can't Hide Love, Love's Holiday. He wrote Don't Ask My Neighbor by the Emotions, which is also a Maurice White product. You know what I mean? He wrote a lot of hits for Maurice White. You know what I mean? So I got to meet him a couple of times. You know what I mean? So I got to hear a lot of them firsthand stories. Like Romney telling me about, he's like on them tours back in the '70s. They had two 18-wheelers that followed the buses because they had a full magic show, during the shows, and they would like have the drums flip upside down, like Maurice White would levitate, and like all this stuff. David Copperfield was, he was the magician, coordinated magic shit like within their shows. And how they used to like meditate for hours, and they would sometimes go to rehearsal, just meditate and sit there and chant and visualize. Then the music would come. Like,
that's
yeah, but you hear it in the music.
No,
so talk to me about what you picked up.
Okay, so listen to Earth, Wind & Fire, man. That Stevie was spiritual, but this was like some next level. This was like some like metaphysical Dr. Phil Valentine type shit. Like for real. Like
said Dr. Phil Valentine.
No, for real. No, I'm telling you, because I was when I was playing the music, like the first couple albums, and that's another thing I liked about listening to these artists. I like to hear their journey into their stride. I love
to hear time when they have the female, and then they Philip Bailey.
I like to hear how they came, because they came into their groove around the Head to the Sky album. That's when they started to hit their stride. You know what I mean? And then that's
Open Our Eyes album.
Yeah. So it was dope just listening to it. But yeah, as it progressed though, it was like the vibrations and the frequency. It was hitting me way too hard. Like because I would be driving. And like the horns, it just like it felt like something was like punching me in my chest.
Phoenix horns.
Yeah, and it was like it was too strong. And I promise you, like I told myself like I gotta get high. I've never smoked a day in my life. I've never even had a want to really even do marijuana or anything like that. But I felt like it was hit. I was like,
Earth, Wind & Fire, do it to you.
Yeah, like it was. Like, I felt like that was the only way I could truly like absorb because it was just, the vibrations was just hitting me. It was like, I mean, dog, like I would like almost wreck because it just like the horns, it just boom, and I was oh shit, like so yeah. I went home, got me some edibles, got me a joint, and I sat there, I smoked it, I let the shit kick in. I had the Power Light album was playing, and then I started to feel like oh shit, I was like, okay, it's coming. And then Side by Side came on. And as it started playing, my eyes started watering. And that's nothing too. Even before I got high, I would tear up because the music was just hitting me so hard. I would kind of tear up like, nigga, what's wrong with you? And then when I got high, I said, nigga, you high. I was like, nigga, just go with it. Like, just float whatever you doing.
Yeah.
And then I just started bawling. Like, as Side by Side was playing, I started like, my eyes was just bawling. And it was like, and you high, so you got a million thoughts going at once. But the main thing I kept thinking was, I was like, yo, this music is so fucking beautiful. And it amazed me. I was like, I didn't even know music could be this beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, I had to, like, it was weird. And then I started crying, because then I was like, man, they killed our music, and I was like, because why isn't this still? This should be the standard.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I had like a bunch of feelings going through, and then the deepest part of this whole of being high was I could hear the horns right on Side by Side. I heard the horns, and I was high, but it was like I still wasn't in the stratosphere they were playing from, and that shit weirded me out. Like it was like. That's when I knew I'm like they're tapped into something. They're tapped into something because it was like as high as I was. I had like 4 edibles and a joint, and I was like, the frequency of the horns, I was
Phoenix
like,
horns.
yeah, I was like, I'm nowhere near I was like, I'm closer to where they're at. I can feel myself closer. I was like, but I'm nowhere near the stratosphere that they're playing from.
And everything, and what Maurice White was doing with the Earth and the Fire was he was taking us back to our roots. You know,
man,
that's probably I always imagine that's how music sounded in ancient Kemet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's how music sounded during the Moorish Empire. You know, 711 through 1492.
Yeah,
because you know he calls them the Phoenix horns after the Phoenicians. You know, rise from the Phoenix, and the Phoenicians people who spread knowledge, and the Phoenicians are the black folks who basically spread knowledge around the world. You know what I mean? It's so much symbology. And I heard a story about Maurice White, like in the early 70s, going back to Egypt and seeing all that stuff on the wall, and that's what bring the sparked his.
That's what motivated him.
You know, the Earth and the Fire is elements of the universe, Earth, Wind, and, and fire, and so you can't say Earth, Air, and Fire don't sound right. So so Earth, Wind, and Fire, that's where it comes from, and they had they used to really meditate for hours on end. Yeah. And that music will come through them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, cause it's like Steve, my homeboy said it best when we were talking about Steve and Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I was like, man, Earth and the Fire songs just spiritual. He was like, Stevie's songs are spiritual. He said, but Earth, Wind, and Fire burrow in that motherfucker. And I was like, that's exactly what it is. It hits you, especially like now that I'm going back, and I'm going back and listening, and the lyric, like Earth, Wind, and Fire, dog, like the lyrics are so. It's like once
they kind of over your head, like
like you don't really catch what they say because the music is so beautiful. But
they got a song called "Getaway." Getaway is about transcendental meditation. They got another song called "The Serpentine Fire." That's about awakening your Kundalini. You know, they got that song's about. Then you got, that's the way of the world. I always say it like this: Stevie Wonder teaches you about life on Earth. Earth and Fire teaches you about what you could be at your highest, at your greatest, on the spirit, connecting the earth,
all the stuff
connecting the earth and the spiritual.
Exactly. Yeah,
and Parliament take your ass to space,
man, nigga. Shit. Yeah, man. Yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire, man. Like Philip Bailey, dog. I think Philip Bailey has become my favorite singer.
So underrated.
Like, dog. Like, bruh, Sail Away, nigga.
Oh, I love Sail Away.
Oh my God, that song's so damn beautiful.
That song, Fall in Love with Love.
Oh man, he said, "Come sail away and touch love, sweet love. Come sail away and fall in love." I was like, oh my, and then Imagination, nigga. That is
Imagination. They sound like angels singing.
That is like, words don't even describe that song. That song is like immaculate. Like that's not from Earth.
That's not from Earth.
That's not an earthly song.
And then they making the hits. One of my favorite songs, just going like, how the hell do you make this? What language is that?
It's not. It's Brazilian groove. They're not singing in Portuguese. I don't know what the fuck they singing. That's my favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire song.
Brazilian rhyme singing in.
Brazilian rhymes, yeah.
Singing in. They singing in ancient Tibetan or something.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they like I said.
Yeah, Jennifer Bird in the chat room. Yes, you gotta go catch the replay. Damn.
Yeah,
Thank you for listening. For everybody tuned in live on Hotep-ish, hotepish.com. We are live with in-studio guest Rubyn Warren talking about his music journey from then till now.
Yeah.
Co-host Larry Goodwell. We have I want to thank y'all for listening on Spreaker all across. Go to my YouTube channel right now, Dwan B, DWANB, and subscribe. That channel is, thank y'all. Y'all been listening to me and going in and subscribing. Thank y'all because it's anemic. I put the replays up every Friday morning from the show, from last night's show. So thank you guys for tuning in. Back to Rubyn. So, Rubyn, like you see that, and you see the musicianship and out of Earth and Fire and how they make you feel spiritually. Then you got to Parliament Funkadelic. Talk to me about that.
Man, now P-Funk, I wasn't ready. I can say that I wasn't ready for them at all. Man, like I'm not gonna lie. It was a slow beginning because I wasn't really feeling the early Funkadelic because it was more rock and I'm not really like a rock person. Yeah. But listening to it though, I was just really impressed. I'm like, yo, George Clinton is a fucking monster. Yeah. Because it's like, damn, how did he? Like, I was into the foundation of like heavy metal and like modern day rock. Like that's what Funkadelic is. You know what I mean? And so listen to the Earth. So I was just like, I appreciate it for what it was. Yeah. But then, but once we got to that mothership connection, you know what I'm saying? Or no, to the, what was that, Chocolate City, The first
first part of Chocolate City.
Yeah.
I love Chocolate City because Chocolate City is a city I've always wanted to live in. Chocolate City, you had Aretha Franklin as the first lady, Stevie Wonder, Minister of Fine Arts, Reverend Knight, Secretary of Music, and Richard Pryor, man, come on now, who don't want to live in Chocolate City?
Yeah, man, yeah. So once like the Parliament side kicked in, and then the funk started hitting.
Yeah,
it was just a mind blown. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was no words to describe. And the deepest thing listening to them was like how like Parliament Funkadelic and George Clinton, they are the literal foundation of today's music. Like without them, you don't have Beyonce, you don't have Chris Brown, you don't have Mary J. Blige, you don't have none of these people. You don't have any of these people without Parliament Funkadelic. Like you don't have Kirk Franklin, you don't have a John P. Key, you don't have a Hezekiah Walker. You don't have none of these cats without Parliament Funkadelic. And that was the thing that blew me away the most. Like listening to their songs, it was like, whoa, everybody owe their career to these cats, because these cats literally like you listen to them, you're listening to hip hop, you're listening to R&B, you're listening to modern day pop, you're listening to rock, you're listening to Van Halen, you're listening to gospel music, you're listening to all of that. And it was like, and that's the thing that really impressed me with them was, like, I always knew growing up as a kid, because I used to watch Good Burger, so I knew George Clinton because the Knee Deep song was on there. Yeah. And so I used to love that song. That was my jam. You know what I mean? And I heard a couple other songs from them, and I always heard that they sounded like a choir because I grew up in church. And I knew then, I was like, that's where everybody got. I was like, that's where choirs got their sound from. I'm like, Kirk Franklin got his sound from that. And then when I got older, I really like Stomp is One Nation Under a Groove and all that stuff. But as I listened to them, listen to their catalog, like without them, that 90s gospel revolution that they went through, that would not exist without George Clinton. And somebody tried to debate me when I said Kirk Franklin owed his career to George Clinton. Somebody tried to debate me, and I was like, nah, the sound that's that choirly sound over some funk beats, over a groovy bass line, all that was George Clinton back in the 70s.
All of it.
You know what I mean? And to prove it, when I shared that picture with you the other day about John P. Key, he tweeted George Clinton and said, "Hey, Uncle George Clinton, this is John P. Key. You don't know how responsible you are for my funk." And that confirmed it for me that, like, without this man, there is no that whole gospel wave that everybody was on in the 90s. There's none of that without George Clinton.
Look, I used to play the drums in church in the 90s and in the 2000s. I'll tell you what we do when we learn a new song, whether it be John P. Key or Kirk Franklin, because all church do is where the new hot song is in the gospel.
Everybody
church choir
everybody sing it,
and then so we be learning the music, and I can't stand gospel music. I do not like gospel. I do not listen to gospel music. 20 years I played gospel music. I do not listen to that shit. So what I would do when I would hear a song, and it would be like, once you hear that first note, you'd be like, oh, that's just cameo. And then, oh shit, that's just Earth and the Fire. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? And we got to give due, because I want to hear your part about this one, Larry, because when we talk about Parliament, we always got to give due to James Brown.
Oh, absolutely.
Because James Brown really is the one that started all. As a matter of fact, George wouldn't have got funky if not for what Bootsy learned from James Brown. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I know, Larry, you've always had an affinity for. I know Ronald's always had an affinity for James Brown. And talk to me about that, about James Brown, your funkadelic, and all that. Well, how you feel about it?
Well, another thing that excited me about Rubyn's journey, since that's the main topic, is the artist that he was listening to. The soundtrack of my life is James Brown, Parliament Funkadelic, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder. That's it. That's what I grew up on. I mean, there was other artists, but those are the four main artists, and number one was James Brown. So my dad, for his generation, James Brown was their Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was our James Brown. Let me stop disrespecting that man like that. But so James was like the big, he was a big star when my dad was growing up. And my dad knew everything about James Brown, and of course, I ended up learning any and everything about James Brown. So he would play Parliament, and he would play James, and he explained to me about Bootsy and James, and he, of course, it was a horrible explanation because he was high. But I always knew that there was an association there. And so I give DeWan, he's a fucking music encyclopedia, and he explained to me, the connection. I'm like, I always knew that there was a connection. My dad would always, put those two together. James also, his career kind of mimicked Stevie's and Parliament's. He started off one way and then got deeper into.
He started off
once they all got into their own groove and said like kind of fuck the system.
Yeah.
As far as how the system wanted them to operate, that's when they all got into greatness.
He started off doing and then when we talk about James, we gotta talk about how Little Richard's the one that put him on, and showed him where to go, and and so James was doing Little Richard and doing a lot of Joe Tex early in his career. You know what I mean? And matter of fact, Joe Tex went to his grave saying James Brown took his swag. You know what I mean? So, we don't know. What no cameras back then. But they a lot of James. I mean, look at like the '50s James Brown and '50s Joe Tex. A lot of like early '60s. The early '60s stuff. But then when you go into from James Brown, he hires Bootsy Collins and his brother Catfish, his kids, after he fired, the main Flames with Fred Wesley and Maceo Parker and so Bootsy only played the bass for James for only like 11 months, because he's like I was just young and James was old, like
so there's a disconnect.
But he taught him a whole lot, you know what I mean? And so going into what you're talking about with Funkadelic, how that worked was when you get into Parliament Funkadelic, when they were doing Funkadelic, they were doing a lot of rock. Because Parliaments were a doo-wop group.
Yeah.
Well, they started out because they were called the Parliaments. Named after those cigarettes.
Yeah.
And they were in Plainfield, New Jersey. They were hairstylists, and they would sing doo-wop.
Yeah, and they was at
they went to Mo-Wop. They went to Motown and tried to get signed with Motown. And then George Clinton was like, our perms would never lay out right. We could never quite be clean enough. So he would do something. He did some writing, some little things for Motown, but the Parliaments thing didn't really work like that. And then so he does the he hires Eddie Hazel and those guys. They get into the Funkadelic, and then Bootsy comes. And then when Bootsy came, Bootsy's the person that taught George Clinton the One. And the One is where all this stuff comes from. And people say the One. What is that?
They got a song. Everything is on the One.
Yeah. and what does that mean? That means on the first note. Every time around, we're going to hit it with a big bang, and we're going to sing. Whatever we're doing, we're going to do it in unison. And James Brown was when I started at 1, 1. I used to do it. And then George Clinton made it bigger. He said James Brown has kind of had the kick drum and the accent on the one. He's like, okay, what we going to do is we want the funk in unison. Everyone is going to come in on one. And when everything comes in on one, he's like, you can play whatever you want the rest of these notes, but come back on one. And what that does is it gives the song, it gives music a texture. It gives it a pocket.
A swing.
It gives it a swing, a presence that really pushes it. And funk is about pushing the beat and laying back at the same time. And he discovered that formula, and that's the formula that made DJ Quick, Dr. J, Ninth Wonder. Everybody else.
That's the other thing that made me amazed with P-Funk, which is like, they are literally like, there is absolutely no West Coast hip hop without them.
None.
Literally, you can say what you want, but that's what blew my mind. It's like, these dudes really laid out rock, gospel, R&B, and hip hop.
Multiple genres.
One. And the fun and the crazy thing that really blew my mind was listening to Funkadelic. I didn't really enjoy the rock stuff that much, but hearing that it's the same people playing these instruments are playing knee deep. Are you kidding me? It's the same people.
They have a song called "Who Says a Funk Band Can't Rock."
Exactly on the One Nation Under a Groove. Yeah. So, and I think the deepest thing for me with P-Funk was after I got through and listened to it, then you got your songs that your grooves that you want to play with.
Yeah.
And that's when I started actually paying attention to what they were actually saying, because once you absorb the music, and I think that's music in general. Once you get past the beat, you start to and I really like George Clinton is like, I always say Earth, Wind, and Fire from another planet. George Clinton's from another dimension.
And he always said that when he made that transition right before the Mothership Connection, he said that he had gotten abducted onto a craft, and he had an experience on that craft. And people say aliens don't exist. Look, I wasn't there, but I do hear the difference in his music from before that and then after that.
No, yeah, you do.
And something must have happened.
Yeah. And listening to his music, it was like the dopest album to me was that Funkentelechy versus the Placebo Syndrome.
Placebo Syndrome, yeah.
Because I didn't like, I ain't gonna lie, on the first listen, it was only a couple songs I had really liked, but after I absorbed P-Funk, I was like, let me go back and listen to some of this stuff that I said I didn't really care for, and now, that's my favorite album, bro. I'll tell you, that shit hit from Bop Gun all the way.
And Bop Gun's all about this. It's all about, the Bop Gun is what makes you feel good. It's about dancing. And so they had these cartoons, Pedro, the artist, he just passed away last year. The one who designed all their album covers, Pedro. Yeah. And they were whole ass like comic books and themes like the certain those devoid of fun.
Yeah.
The people who don't want to have fun. And I'm gonna make you have fun with this Bop Gun.
And Dookie Stick and all that. I read all of the. I read them like comic books. My dad has all of them, and you're right. I read all of them.
Man, yeah, and like the fucking Telecly, man, it really fucked me up because I was like, and not even just that album, but like even like. I didn't realize that One Nation Under the Groove was about black liberation.
Yeah.
When he says we're going to dance our way out of our constriction, I was like, this nigga out here letting niggas know what the truth is. But I was like, yo, he's a genius because he disguised it as funk. And so you couldn't even, I was like, man, that's crazy.
I'm going to tell you another secret. Flashlight. That's metaphysics. That's the chakras. That's the 7 chakras.
Yeah, red light, neon light.
Yeah, red light is. You know what the red light is? Red light is a root chakra to get you down there, and that's what gets you to dancing and the moving. That's why you kept hearing the red light. That's
and
what
then
that song's about.
The fucking Telechy, man, that one really fucked me up because I realized what he was saying because he was saying the way he pronounced, he was like, "How's your funk intellect?"
Yeah,
he's saying your intellect, and then your placebo syndrome. Is just a system that puts you to sleep and doesn't do anything because even in that song he's saying when you taking every kind of pill nothing seems to ever cure your ill. And he's saying you can heal yourself and don't have to rely on the. I was like, oh my god, and it is
funk not only cures it air cures.
It not only he said you have to deprogram then reprogram. And then even he says funk not only moves it also removes. And so he was another one that was tapped into another frequency. You know what I mean?
If you go back and listen to the album, he has an album, and there's this one part where he says, if you really listen to funk, it sounds spacey. You know what I mean? It sounds out there. It sounds like like what's this weird nigga on?
Yeah.
But then. You listen to this is a song called "Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts" on the Standing on the Verge album, and and he talks about how our life, how deep we can get into our thoughts and change and alter our reality. I always recommend people go back and listen to that song. That's very deep when it comes down to it. Larry, I know you went to college, and one thing I cannot stand is being at a college party and Atomic Dog come on. One of my favorite songs ever. But them cues.
No. Okay, so it's 2 songs. It's Atomic Dog, which is the Q song, and Flashlight was the Kappa song.
Oh yeah, and them niggas get to battling and shit.
So it's for the Greek organization, they had 2 Parliament songs, and I grew up listening to them and loving them. And getting excited, and I couldn't get excited to either song in one of those frat parties, especially if it was a Q party or a Kappa party, because they were like, oh, we're going to beat this nigga up because he thinks he's one of us. No, dog, I just grew up listening to this shit, and it makes me happy, and I want to dance too, but you niggas is monopolizing the dance floor.
Man, but that's the thing. So how do we go from that to where we are right now? For that, I would like you guys. There's a book out there that talks about it called the White Paper, the Columbia Study. You can look up the study part. It doesn't have all the information in the book, but you see how in that report they started studying black music, and they saw that we as black people, we vibrate differently when it comes to our music. We communicate through our music. And in the 70s, you notice it wasn't a whole lot of black people getting messed up by the police in the 70s. If you look, you don't see too much footage of that. You know what I mean? The families were still together. They started the war on drugs, but it hadn't quite done anything yet. Hadn't quite hit its stride yet. And in that music, we as a people, when our music is right, we write. In a lot of ways. So they purposely say, you know what? we're going to take out what they did was in that report. You see, in the late 70s, insert Clive Davis, when he came around, he started siphoning off the best producers. You take another person group, you got to get into Gamble and Huff. They're writing in that Philadelphia sound. Mm-hmm. You really got to get into them because if you listen to that that's the OJs, Teddy Pendergrass.
Yeah. I know about Gamble and Huff.
All their music was positive and uplifting. Mm-hmm. So let's take them away from these niggas and put them with these white people over there. We're going to take Maurice White from Earth and Fire and take him from the Emotions and put him with Barbra Streisand. Mm-hmm. We're going to take Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards and take them from Chic and put them with Madonna. All that song Like a Virgin was Chic, but since they couldn't do it with Chic, they gave the song to Madonna. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so as you saw in the 80s, you saw a lot of your top black producing acts leave their act. Because if you see, it kind of just stopped in 1979. Like, the live music kind of just, you had Confunction, you had Lakeside, you had all these, the Brick. You can go down the line of bands that was in doo-wop groups that were around. And then it kind of just stopped in 80.
Yeah.
And what they did was they came in, they separated the top producers from the top acts, put the top producers with white acts, made the black acts kind of go and fend for themselves throughout the 80s. They didn't have no internet. And there was no nostalgia toward the time back in the 80s.
They were still the it was still popular at that time.
Yeah. So. And so then you started bringing in that more synthetic sound. And then if you go back and look into the 80s, most of the music, if you listen to the music, it's all kind of harsh, fluffy.
That's the thing too that I noticed. Like, as I listened to it, it was like once all these artists got into the 80s, it was like the music was still good, but you could hear the decline.
Because if you wanted us to release this album, you couldn't talk about Metaphysics, Earth and Fire. You got to talk about, Let's Groove Tonight. Mm-hmm. If you want us to release this album, you can't talk about, You Haven't Said Nothing, Stevie Wonder. And he was with Motown, but it was still a different time, different sound. You gotta, you gotta change it up.
Yeah.
And it was just a different time, and that was done, on purpose. Harvard, the government commissioned Harvard University to commission this report for Columbia Records, and to find out how to separate us from our music, because they said by the year 2000, black music is going to too far outpace white music, so we got to do something to stop it right now. So that was a systematic thing that got it taken away.
Yeah, because it's too, because listening to this old school music, and it made me think about what I what songs I grew up listening to that was in my my childhood and stuff that was out at that time and stuff, and it's like it's not a coincidence that we went from fucking Sir Duke to fucking Drake in that goddamn Tootsie Slide over there. Like, how the fuck did we, how the hell do you go from a Give Up the Funk to a Shake That Laffy Taffy? Like, how is that? Like, cause remember, both of these songs, were on the radio. Like, both, like Laffy Taffy and We Want the Funk were both on the radio.
Yeah.
At one point in time, like, they were both in rotation.
Yeah.
And it's like, but in a 30-year gap though, you go from that to that in 30 years. Like,
it took Atomic Dog to take Thriller off the top of the charts. It was Atomic Dog that it took something that good. You couldn't. Thriller would have stayed #1 if it was followed up by this Rihanna shit.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like I said, just listen to this music, man. I was like, it made me realize. I was just like, yo, the older generation, I got respect for y'all because I always say you guys were spoiled. Like y'all, it's almost like once you've had a umami burger, right?
Yeah.
McDonald's is trash to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
once you have quality, you know what trash is because you've always had quality. So it's like I truly listen to this music. I truly understand and empathize with the older generation of black people who do criticize our music. And I won't give us too much shit because
we weren't taught music.
Yeah,
that's different.
Yeah,
they learned music in school.
Yeah, and for us it's like this all we really know because this is what we grew up on. So you can't. It's like I don't fault us too much.
Yeah, I blame them for not fighting for us to keep music in school. Shit.
For sure. And you could always play it around.
Y'all can learn to trump in the 3rd grade. And we got to learn the damn beat, but we had to start beatboxing with our hands.
Yeah. So
because y'all voted in Reagan.
Yeah. So it's like, I get. So yeah, it's like I do get the OGs, critiques and criticisms about our music. Like I said, going through this journey, I was like, yo, the OGs ain't really tripping like that. Like they actually do got a point. Like our shit, like niggas try to debate with like my peers try to be like, nah, man. I'm like, nah, these niggas is trash, fam. Like, like go listen to it. Go listen to an off Stevie Wonder album. Listen to an album that ain't like. Don't listen to songs in your life. Listen to the fulfilling.
The fulfilling his personality.
Yeah,
listen
to that. You know what I'm saying? Listen
and
to,
watch it be 15 times better than anything you ever heard in your life.
You know what I'm saying? Listen to Earth, Wind & Fire Faces album, which is not one of the.
They didn't promote it. Yeah, that was one of their off albums.
But that's just an off album. That shit slap harder than anything coming out today.
And it's because you don't have to measure it against opinion. You can just measure it against the music scale. Okay, this music has a live band. They have people singing, and they're hitting very, 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 very hard notes to hit.
And harmony.
And charts and harmony. And they're just doing a lot of things that are like way, way more complicated than like talking over a beat.
And it's all human orchestrated, too. That's the thing that was really bugging me out listening. I was like, these are fucking humans. Like that's what really bugged me out. Like listen to that 70s. I was like, yo, these are humans creating this sound. It's not like me. I mean I play with beats a little bit, but that's literally me on my computer just putting a pattern. You know, like I'm just syncing up a pattern.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't take a lot of work. You don't even really have to even know like you don't even have to know like measurements and music count. None of that. You can just type it in to your computer. These people were actually doing humans that literally sat, and not only sat, but they had to actually write the notes out
with a pencil.
Yeah, like they had to write the notes
and paper.
Yeah, man. Like I got a lot of respect for the old school cats, man. Like
tons of
all the foundation, like just the foundation that they set for us. You know what I mean? It's like real beautiful.
Yeah,
it's real beautiful.
Larry, what are some of your closing thoughts? Go ahead, brother.
Soul music was so much better then because it was actual souls creating the music. Now it's computers. Like we've gone from Someday We'll All Be Free to No Parking on the Dance Floor to fucking Young Thug. And I love Young Thug, but dog, we connect with these artists because of their music, not what they do away from the music. And everybody, all the young folks say, well, you talk about their music, but they do this, they do that in the community. That's cool, but that's not why you fuck with them. You fuck with them because of the music. And we have the same type of things going on that they had. I mean, this racism ain't dead, and drugs is a whole lot worse, and all kinds, and white supremacy still around. The artists need to pay attention to the old school artists and start putting messages back in their music. And I promise you, society will get a lot better.
Yep, yeah. And that's the thing, you know. And there are great artists out there: Terrace Martin, Anderson .Paak, Kamasi Washington,
Tank and the Bangers.
You got. They're out there. They're just not pushed by the mainstream. Because the mainstream, because we're about to end it, so we only have 1 more minute left. So I want to get this closing thought out. The music that we talked about today has been, that's our music as foundational Black Americans. You know, as foundational Black Americans, we oftentimes we only associate the bad sides of our culture. You know, the baby mama side and all that nonsense. But we've done so many more great things, and that's who we are at our core. Who we are at our core is Frankie Beverly and Maze singing about love and harmony. Who we are at our core is Gladys Knight and the Pips. Who we are at our core is the Spinners. It's Teddy Riley. You know what I mean? That music before it was interrupted and put to where it is right now is Babyface. That's who we are.
Yeah.
When you look at the charts today, you don't have too many foundational Black Americans on it. You have people who kind of aren't really from here, kind of like imitating our music, and it's no slight against them, but it's not good, and it doesn't have the soul.
They don't have our flavor, yeah.
Because it's no disrespect, but everybody has a basis from where they come. That music came through our experience. We emote it, you know, we live it, and that's who we are. I'm looking forward to this Jill Scott and Erykah Badu battle coming up on May 9th.
That's gonna be good.
Because they represent the soul. They're in that lineage. You know what I mean? And the music is not dead. I want people to always remember that the music isn't dead. The music is alive and well. Rubyn, real quick, 10 seconds. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, IG, Rubyn Comedy, RBYN Comedy. And I just want to say real quick, I'm naming my son after Maurice White. And I told myself in my career, I have to play either Stevie Wonder or Maurice White in a biopic, either one.
You can find Larry at Larry_. Is it Larry _Goodwill?
Yeah, on Instagram.
And Dewan B, hotepish.com. Get your T-shirts, get your apparel. And remember this, there are no perfect messengers. Only perfect messages for those who are willing to pick up game. We out.